everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure to welcome my guest, Hannah Lee. Hey, Hannah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. I'm really excited. So I have heard one of your episodes with our mutual friend David Shin on his podcast. I hope they hear this. But I'm excited to you've always talked about different things on his platform. So I'm excited to hear and hopefully dig in a little more on the career path part of it. But yeah, so without me talking too much further, Hannah, what is it that you do?
Yeah. So more simplistically, I am finishing my PhD in a counseling psychology program. And so usually the spiel I give about that is, so I research and clinically intervene with Asian American mental health broadly, but my duties under that umbrella differ quite a bit.
Okay. So I'm excited to I feel like, yes, that was a simplified version maybe of everything that you do. So I'm excited to dig in a little bit. And actually one of the reasons I am excited to talk to you today is I think I run into a lot of people that consider psychology, counseling, MFT, those types of careers. But I also feel like a lot of people don't really know everything that it entails. I have had an MFT on the podcast before, and then she ended up actually going to work for an insurance company or something.
Oh no!
Yeah, but it was still a good episode. It was really insightful. But at the same time, I feel like there are so many areas in the field of counseling that many people don't know. I have had a counselor on too. Do you know Ginny?
I do. Yeah.
So hers was really insightful too. But I'd love to hear more about just your reasoning to going into even a PhD program as well. But anyways, what does a typical day for Hannah look like?
So it's different every day of
Okay.
the week. And so I'm kind of at the point of my program where everything is very self-directed. So I would say that first 2 years of my program, I was functioning mostly as a student. I was going to class, and then we also do clinical rotations. And so depending on where you interviewed and got this position for, that's also what you're doing with your time, and then doing some minimal research. Right now, the stage I'm in is because I'm wrapping up. I am finishing up my dissertation. And so that's a lot of self-research. I'm also teaching a college class on interpersonal communication skills. And I'm also seeing clients at a clinic. It's a private practice that mostly serves Asian American families and adolescents and individuals. So that's how I divide my time.
Okay, wow, so crazy. Just to clarify,
Yeah.
so after you get your PhD, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. So my program is, the title is Doctor of Philosophy.
Okay.
And so usually people that go through the process of PhDs, because there's lots of doctorates, even in psychology, there's a PsyD program, which is Doctor of Psychology.
Okay.
Usually PhDs pump out folks who go into academia. So they'll be faculty members, or there'll be industry leaders, kind of at the expert level. And so and a lot of people also go into private practice too. That's where the money is. But most folks, they either go into academia or some hybrid of actually the two.
So what's your hope?
I'm still figuring it out,
Okay.
but I probably do. So I don't want to do I went into the program thinking I wanted to be a faculty member at a R1 institution, which is
What's a
very
R1?
so R1s are very heavy research institutions. And so that's how the university gets most of its money and how it builds prestige by producing scholarship. And then our two institutions are more teaching heavy focused. And
I
so like
see.
they don't pump out a lot of research, but they focus a lot of their energies on like student development and the learning environment. There's also like all the way down to R3, I think, but there's not many R3 universities.
And
Yeah.
what would an R3 be?
It would be like it would be university that's not super I guess like settled in yet, if
I
that makes
see.
sense.
I see.
So yeah, but it's like the rankings are based on how much research productivity the university has as a whole. And then there's like a way that people like folks will classify it into those
Oh.
three rankings.
Okay. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No, that's
but so
okay.
you were saying your hope initially your hope was to maybe work at a R1 type of program.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I realized like I can do research, but um and I'm sure I'll talk about this at one point too, but I think like the calling that I have with what I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
and where the Lord is leading me, it's not to just produce scholarship for like the sake of prestige. I really want to intervene in
Mm.
communities and families
Mm.
and students. And so like right now, I'm not sure, like we'll see what God says later, but I do want to teach to some level. So I'm thinking of like R2 institutions and then
Mm.
also doing like community-based intervention. So maybe not like therapy directly one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
but thinking about what like mental health can look like in industries or like companies, but also churches,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Um, so I feel like I could ask so many questions. But for me, as you're talking, because like essentially it sounds like I mean, counselors, they help people from what I understand, and
Mm,
they help with people's mental health and to like talk through things, give them tools, right,
mhm, mhm,
to get to a place of being healthy mentally.
mm,
But for me, Hannah, I think what I would love to know about you is like, so the why, like where did this
mhm.
all start, and
Yeah.
like yeah, what you said, the calling that you feel like you have over your life. Could
Mm.
you share that with me just a little bit?
Yes, I would love to. So, my story is pretty unique. I've known what I wanted to do probably since I was 12.
What?
Yeah, which I get that reaction most times. And so there is a Korean American, her training is in counselor education, which is a little bit different than I'm studying to be a psychologist.
Okay.
So, but her doctorate is in counselor ed, but she is a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And she teaches on like adolescent mental health, Asian American stuff as well. And her name is Dr. Josephine Kim, and
Okay.
she came to my church when I was in seventh grade. I lived in Orlando, Florida at the time, so like no Korean people really.
Right. Right.
And they heard that like this Harvard professor was going to be coming to this our church to do like a kind of like a seminar series, and like I mean every Korean in Florida came to Orlando like that weekend, you know. But the topic of her seminars were on intergenerational family conflict. And so it was just a really healing time, really eye-opening. And like I remember being 12 and she had a time where she had like a family applications like portion. So we got like she shared and taught and gave us tools, and then she had us go into like our families and talk about like facing our parents, being
Uh-huh.
like, how can I understand you better? Like, what is it? What is your
What?
story? Yeah. And so I remember being 12 and recognizing that that was the first time that my family and I had a meaningful conversation, or what felt like a meaningful one. And it was just
Mm.
really moving. And I don't know what came over me. We're going to just say it's the Holy Spirit. But
Mhm.
I like my 12-year-old self. I was like, this is what I want to do. And like, I want to provide this space for more families and individuals. And I went up to her, I got her email. And now that I think about it as an adult, I'm like, that must have been hilarious for Dr. Joe to like see this 12-year-old little girl being like, I would like to get your email. Like, can we connect,
Oh, yeah.
But I kept in touch with her over the years. And
Seriously?
Yes. Yeah. It's wild,
Oh
right?
my
I know. Like
gosh.
God kept that connection alive. And
Wow.
when I was graduating college, I was an international studies major. So I thought
Okay.
I was going to be a diplomat. I did not like say the course the whole time, but I always knew I was really passionate about culture and
Mm-hmm.
like peacekeeping, like unity, things like that.
Mm.
So, and you know, like I think my parents were interested for the prestige aspect of, you know, that job or like that line of work.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in my senior year, I was like, this is not it. Like this, you know, and I took a class for counseling psychology and I was like, oh wow, I think this, and then I remembered Dr. Joe. And so I kept in touch
Mm.
with her from when I was 12 to probably when I was like 15. And then we didn't talk for like a few years. And then when I was graduating college, I reached out to her again, just shot in the dark. I
Mm.
like went to my childhood email. It was like Hannah Banana at yahoo.com. Found her email and I was like, I don't know if you remember me, but like I'm considering like, you know, going into the mental health field. If can you share what program you teach in? And
Mm.
she was like, it's so good to hear from you. Like, of course I remember. And then yeah, and then I apply and like I was like, God, if this is the route that you want me to go in, like that you're going to open the doors, you know?
Mm.
I know it was a long time coming, but like you'll make it happen. And she emailed me back and I applied to the program she teaches in at Harvard. And it was in a prevention science program, which is adjacent with mental health.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and then I was able to be like directly mentored by her. I chaired a conference during my master's program for Asian, it's called Let's Talk,
Okay.
and it's for the emotional and academic well-being of Asian and Asian American students. And so just had a ton of people that I was able to meet and
Wow.
really propelled me forward. And I got in so I was 12 when I met her, and
Mm-hmm.
then I got in when I was 22. So God does a lot of things at like the 10-year marks
Oh
of my
my
life. Yeah,
goodness.
so we'll see what he does when I'm 32.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so just to go back a little bit,
Yes, yes.
um, your senior year of college is when you decided to kind of shift gears, is what you're saying.
Yep. Hmm.
And so you graduated with the International Affairs bachelor's,
Yep.
and then you don't require any prerequisite for that program that you decided to go into, your master's program?
Yeah. So I guess my master's program is called Prevention Science and Practice.
Okay, what's that?
So yeah, so it's a program that was designed for folks that are, because I went to a school of education,
Okay.
and so it's for people that want to be like supportive in the like K through 12, that you know, young people and children age group,
Uh-huh.
but don't want to be in the school system. So people that have my that graduated from the program with me have a lot of like companies that will support like depression and anxiety for youth, you know, or like
Oh,
they'll even
okay.
have like parent education programs. They'll run those, you know, so it's
So
not
it's
like
like so
teachers.
specific then.
Yes, it's super specific. But there's a counseling strand and a research strand and a practice strand, even within that program. And I was
Uh-huh.
in the research strand of it because I knew I wanted to do my PhD after my master's.
I see.
So it's the content is the same, but the approach is different.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, like to try to make a prerequisite for that, I think would have been like pretty
I
hazardous. So
see. I see. Okay.
yeah.
And so like you decided to like go through with this particular program for your master's because of her recommendation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so as you're doing it, are you finding that it is something that you definitely want to continue then at this
Yeah,
point?
yeah, I think so. Like when I was applying for graduate schools at the when I was finishing undergrad, I had a chance to start my PhD then. I got into a program in New York, but
Uh-huh.
I just like I didn't feel like I knew enough, and so I
Uh-huh.
wanted to do my master's first.
Okay.
And I think the unique aspect of the program that Dr. Joe taught was I did like a group counseling class, you know, and I did like a
Mm.
development like abnormal developmental psych class, you know, during my
Mm.
master's. And so I got like some of the psych background, but because I knew I wanted like a terminal degree, later on. I wanted to be Dr. Joe. I was like, I want to
Yeah.
do it on this expert level, and I don't want to just stop with my master's.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I wanted to set myself up for PhD programs, and for that, you need research experience. And so I
Mm.
got some of that in undergrad because I joined like a psychology lab, but you don't do much as a college student. But I really like sunk deep into research during my
I
master's, which I
see.
think
Okay.
led me to be able to be competitive for doc programs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so like this is gonna sound just blunt and maybe even a little rude, but
That's
like
okay. Bring it.
um like so are you just really smart or
Oh my
like
gosh. No,
like no, okay, but
mm-mm.
no, like legitimately, like I just like have you always done well in school? Like has it been like pretty breezy for you? Like
Um,
high school. Let's talk about high school. Like was that
yeah.
like breezy for you?
Um, no. High school was hard, I think. Like,
Okay.
I was in IB, so
Okay,
my
okay.
curriculum was, I think, different than a lot of people
I
like
see.
that I know in Georgia. But no, it was hard. High school was hard. I really don't like math. Okay. I
Okay.
had a very hard time with geometry.
But do you find yourself thriving in these areas that you're in right now though?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's just a good fit
Yeah,
for me. Like
yeah.
put
No,
me in
no.
anything finance, I'll burn the company down.
Yeah,
For
me
me.
too. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I guess the reason I ask, I mean, I feel like, as I explore different jobs,
Mm.
it is clear that, there are particular types of people that maybe should pursue specific careers, right? Like,
Mm.
for example, like I would, as much as the person that came on, like she almost convinced me I should have been an auditor, like an accountant, because she was so
Oh.
passionate about her
Oh.
job that I was
Ah,
like, wow, like this is so exciting, right? But
yeah.
I know I would suck at it,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But so I guess the reason I asked is like, this path that you've gone on thus far, I feel
Mm.
like is an academically challenging one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I think people remind me of that,
Yeah.
and I've just never like done anything else.
Yeah.
So so I'm kind of like, oh, is it because I went
Right, right, right.
straight through. So
Yes.
I guess I don't really know. Sometimes I have those moments because like my, adult friends have been out of college for a long time now, and they have such balanced lives. And I'm kind of like, oh, I guess that's what that's like, you don't
Right,
know it
right.
though until later on. So,
Okay, okay.
well,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, so I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Is like, is this something that like, do you need to love academics and things like that to kind of thrive in
Mm.
this area? Or like, do you have any thoughts or opinions on that?
Yeah, I think you need to love learning, and I
Mm.
think that's definitely part of it. But I also think like you need to love uh no, you need to want to think about things critically. That's such a huge
Oh,
part. And I think
yes.
it's totally fair if people don't want to engage in like a higher level that continuously will stretch you, and like
Right.
you have to think above at a level of about this certain topic about mental health and psychology and whatever, everything that falls under that
Uh-huh.
in a really yeah, like stretching way. And I
Uh-huh.
think not a lot of people find that necessary, but that's
No, I totally
probably
get
it.
it. I am not that person. But like I want to be a lot of times, and I will
Uh-huh.
say as I've gotten older,
Uh,
uh excuse me, and I've had my own kids, I do find myself wanting to have these like different kind of conversations with people.
mm,
But I do feel like, okay, I guess in the ministry sense, right? Like
mm,
within ministry,
mm,
I'm not really a visionary, excuse me.
mm, mhm,
Like in the sense of like people ask me to like dream and like where do you see us in the next 10 years and things like
mm,
that, like
mm.
outside, like how are we gonna, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really care that much. Like, and so I've always felt myself like, but I can see in your line of work too, like obviously, like you need to have those kind of natural tendencies to maybe even excel in this area,
Mm.
which is good, yeah, because I mean I would want the person helping me with my mental health to think in those ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the field is super interesting because you can be a practitioner without getting a doctorate. Like you can,
Mm,
be an MFT or LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor,
okay.
or, there's substance use like addictions counselors and things like that. So you don't like if you decide to get a PhD, like you're deciding that you want to do more than just like practice.
I see. I see.
A lot of people just do practice because it ends up being able to like just, fund their lives, and then they have like other more important things that come up for them, like family.
Mm-hmm.
But like usually even with so for me, like if I just practice as a psychologist, I don't just do therapy. So like psychology is a protected like title because we do evaluations. And so
Okay.
psych evals will be for like neuropsychology, even like forensic psychology or like learning disabilities, even things like um let's see, what do people usually get psych evals for? There's a lot. Like the more uncommon ones are personality disorders, like
Mm,
narcissistic personality, like
mm-hmm.
bipolar, borderline, that kind of stuff. But for more functional, practical uses, you have to have a psych eval to get either resources or custody or whatever else.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
that's kind of the other practice aspect that only like psychologists can do.
I see. I
So
see.
it just opens more doors, I guess.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, this might be a dumb question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. So like psychiatrists are not the same, right?
No, yeah. So psychiatrists go to med school. So they're MDs usually or
Oh.
DOs, and they don't learn like psychological interventions. They
Uh-huh.
only learn the like medicine aspect. So you really go to a psychiatrist to go get medication after you've been diagnosed through a psych eval for something, but psychiatrists don't do
Oh my
evaluation. Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So
That's
people
super
call
cool.
me a psychiatrist like often, and I'm just like, I don't really correct them, but very big difference.
Why
Yeah.
not? You should correct them.
I don't know. I'm just kind of like, you'll probably forget it again anyway.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. Okay. So, you said you wear a lot of hats in this time of your life, this season of your life. That I find that one piece where you teach a college class, you said, on
Hmm.
interpersonal relationships.
Interpersonal communication
A community.
skills.
Oh, that sounds very important. How do I sign up? Like,
Yeah.
um, no, like what kind of students take this class?
So it's like a 3,300 level class. So like I have probably close to like 188 students. So it's not like a super in-depth so if when I taught master students, those are like I will teach you to be a therapist. Like these are basic counseling
Oh,
skills. But interpersonal communication skills is more just like how can you be effective, in your conversation? Like what can you do for conflict resolution, that kind of stuff. So it's more fit for what undergraduate degrees are for, which is like breadth, not width or
okay,
depth. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah,
Do you enjoy teaching?
I do. It depends on the class. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you can hear my dog. I taught a stress and stress management class last semester, and
Uh-huh.
that was stressful, but this semester is a lot more chill. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
The counseling aspect that you said that you do right now too. So,
Hmm.
okay, I know you said you don't know exactly what you're going to do yet
Hmm.
after you finish your PhD, but is there a part that you like right now?
Yeah. I actually do really like teaching.
Okay.
I like the process of depositing the things that I like know and like really seeing students
Yes.
for some students it like really interests them and sticks with them. And so I think out of the three I really do like teaching. And so
Mm,
that's why I would probably like go an R2 route if I
mm-hmm,
like were to stay in academia.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, being a therapist is like hard on a lot of
Yeah.
days. And so like I'm not sure how sustainable it would be for me to do that like full time. Although I want to
Mm-hmm.
always have my like foot in it, I don't think I
Mm.
could do it like every day all day.
And why is that?
So like, and so this ties into kind of why I want to do more community-based intervention. So like,
Okay.
like churches or even like families. I like, I am an impact thinker. So like, how can I most efficiently impact the most amount of people at one
Oh,
time? And I think that's just kind of how my brain normally like goes, like that's the space I go to.
okay.
But therapy is a very individual process, and
Mm,
it's complicated because we're all complex beings, and there's a lot of value in that. And there's so much privilege in being able to really hear about someone's most difficult, things in their
right,
lives, and
right.
you're helping to walk them through that. But I think because of the way I'm wired, I'm thinking about like maximum impact. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, what if I can do more of like a psychoeducation on what it is that I'm talking through with this patient or client, and just make it more available for like the
I
masses,
love
and
it.
to make access, like more just easy, and then they can find their own therapist to like process through that with them,
Right.
and so I think I
Okay.
err on more of that side.
Okay, so that is a thing though, like this resource that you're talking about. Like there are other
Mm.
people that do this and like that's all they do.
Yeah, yeah. And it will look different. So like,
Okay.
even Dr. Joe, so she is teaching in like at a university, but her even coming to my church like when I was 12, she wasn't
Mm,
sitting down with like individual people or families. She was like disseminating the information, explaining it, and then giving the families a chance to like apply what she was teaching. And then if they felt like they needed further support or guidance, like she was encouraging folks to like find therapists, and find
mm.
interventionists. So like I really like that approach, and I think that's a better fit for me too.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Mhm.
Sign me up for your first class, whatever seminar, whatever that is, I'll be there. Um, uh, yeah, that's really okay. You call it impact thinking?
Yeah.
Im-
I'm not, it's not like a coined term, but yeah, I think I'm more of like a efficiency, impact oriented person.
Because I'm like, oh, that's me. I like that too.
Yeah.
Can I use that
Yeah.
term?
Yeah. You can have it, but it's your term.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Okay, so what oh oh I know, okay. Sorry, I'm just like extroverting my thoughts as I'm
No,
talking
you're
to you. But
good.
you work with specifically Asian Americans in counseling is what you said. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Hmm.
Okay, so and that is near and dear to your heart, it seems.
Hmm.
Is there I mean, it is obvious, I feel, to me, but maybe not to others. Why have you made that choice to do that?
Yeah. Um, I mean, obviously there's a personal aspect of it. I think, my family struggled so much when we immigrated, and I really started thinking about like our family dynamics and why it was the way that it was. And I
Mhm.
think, a lot of times even like a lot of PhD folks call our research me search, this process of like searching myself.
Mm.
And so there's definitely a personal component of it, but I think a large part is like, I think God's heart for the Korean community is so vast, and we're a very
Mm.
interesting pocket of the world's population. I mean, like such extensive history of colonization and war, and being really torn in, economically, socially, politically. But I think the one thing that has been passed down is both resilience and like trauma.
Yes.
And I think God's heart towards our community is healing, and to like preserve what is good, which is our collectivism and resilience,
Mhm.
but to heal like the aspects of our DNA that is not of him. And so it really
Mm.
was for me, like, as I go deeper
Oh.
into this work, it's first started because I was like, why was my mom like that? Or, why was my dad like unable to emotionally connect with me? But I feel like as I really go deep into this work, it's been more of a process of joining with God's heart and what he desires for our community, and also celebrating the really unique and wonderful ways that he has, you know of the identity that he's given us. So it's been
Mm,
both.
yeah, that's amazing.
Mm.
Gosh. And do you feel like okay, so I guess so school in general, sorry, I'm all over the place, but
No, it's all good.
school, like, to be a counselor, basically school does like the programs give you the tools obviously that you need to be a good counselor, I'm
Mm,
assuming.
mm,
Yes. And then but at the same time, I guess what I wanted to there's something specific I want to ask, but I just
mhm.
like don't have the words to say it. Um mm, I guess when you first started counseling
Mhm,
and doing clinicals and things like
mm,
that,
mm.
what was the most challenging part for you?
Yeah. I would actually probably like say that school didn't prepare to
Oh,
me
okay.
to be a psychologist.
Yes.
Yeah. So, there are just some things that you can't learn in a classroom. Like,
Yeah, of
you
course.
learn the theoretical orientations that you operate from, and then you learn the skills, of active listening and warmth and empathy and all these things. But they push you into, like the clinical work, while you have supervision in your program, because I think there's just no way that you can learn it until you have the first person that now you're like responsible for,
Mm,
really supporting well sitting in front of you. And so I think like, that was really difficult. So like every aspect of like other aspects of my PhD program, like research and even the coursework, I had been used to doing.
mhm.
But clinical work was the first thing that I was like, I've never done this before,
Mm,
And I think that was really difficult. And when I was first starting off, and I still struggle with this to some extent, I feel massive responsibility to meet like the therapy goals that I have set with this person, or even when I'm doing like psych evals and stuff, for the report that I'm writing to be of help, to this person, whatever
mm,
function, that I am in that person's life for. I feel a lot of responsibility to like make sure that they leave this, relationship, the therapeutic relationship, because
mhm.
it's not exactly an experience, right? It is a relationship, and you build that, and it's all one-sided, right? Like they're not there for it to be reciprocal towards me. So like,
Right, right.
I feel massively responsible for caring for that person well.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And that's I think that's been difficult, because sometimes
Mm,
like you do need to draw boundaries or realize that you can't do the healing for them.
mhm,
Um, and you can't be the answer to every aspect of what they're going through.
mhm,
But I
mhm.
think like that's my heart, that I want to be a part of all of those steps. But sometimes like I've had a hard time with like drawing it back a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man. Um, do you feel like, the boundaries that you talked about? I guess like do you find it like okay, what do you like the least? What do you like the least is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I don't know
Yeah.
why my words are all jumbled this evening. I'm not normally like no, I am. I'm always like this, but I'm lying. But I think I'm just so fascinated by everything you're saying that it's having I'm processing everything. But
Yes, I hear you.
anyways, yeah, what so like I know that you said that those things are challenging even till now and that because for me, I'm like every time I talk to a counselor, like that one that is like that's their career,
Mhm.
um I do find it fascinating and I do find it something that is like a necessary tool, especially just I think being someone in leadership and ministry in the church,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
I think we just do that without knowing we're doing it, listening to people, trying to give advice with discernment.
Mm.
But I don't have the tools to do it,
Mm.
and I do find it would be beneficial for me.
Mm.
However, it's like I know the kind of work that goes in.
Mm.
And then like, I feel like I would be terrible. Like I would be a
Mhm.
terrible counselor is how I feel. But I mean, like, what do you think makes a good counselor?
Mm. Hmm. I mean, there are, answers that come up at the top of my head. So like, but I think this is an aspect of the field that I actually struggle with because I can tell you what the secular reasons of what would make a good counselor, and then I can
Okay.
tell you kind of what would like what I struggle with with being a believer.
Okay.
Because the field of mental health is still, at the end of the day, like it's a secular approach to something very like vulnerable about people. It's like soul
Yes.
care, right? But the way that we're trained is like without the perspective of the Bible or the Lord like in it. And so what makes a good like any mental health clinician is right, like obviously unconditional positive regard for the person sitting like across from you.
Mm,
Like no like lack of judgment, no like we actually are told not to like give advice. We are, kind of to lead the horse to the water ish,
right, right, right.
it's tolerance and respect to like every belief and choice that human beings make.
Mm,
um and yeah, I think it's like commitment as the mental health clinician to get the patient or client to get to where they want to be, whatever their goals are, right?
mm.
But
Oh
when you
my
get into
gosh.
this work as a believer, there are very, certain things that like are not biblical, like that of the people ways that people want to function, live their lives,
Mm,
make
mm.
decisions for not just themselves, with their families, their children. And you are a voice of authority and feedback that they're trusting, that they're paying
Right,
for to
right,
receive.
right.
And so like I think to be a Christian and a there is Christian counseling, right? But I am like not that. That's not the route that I feel like God's called me to go into,
Mm-hmm.
to like the seminary route. So like
Right.
as a psychologist, I wrestle with that a bit. And so like I'm still asking those questions in my own time with God, but I think it's to mimic, the Holy Spirit, who like the Bible says is also he's a comforter and a counselor for us.
Yes, yes.
And he doesn't just, like coddle our feelings or say that everything that we think or believe is correct, and there is profound comfort and guidance in the role that he has in our lives, but there's also correction. There's, some whooping sometimes. There's Holy
Yeah,
Spirit whooping
yeah.
sometimes. So like to heed to that and to submit to that is the wise thing to do, right? For us. And so I
Right.
think those are the aspects of who he is that I try to mimic in my work.
Mm.
But again, it's still been a very exploratory thing for me.
No, that sounds impossible to me. But like even just the first, you know how you told me you have like this like things that come to the top of your head, the secular reasons for
Mhm,
like what makes a good counselor,
mhm.
and I'm like, what? That sounds so hard. But I mean,
Yeah.
but that's true. Like, counseling, I feel like I've never actually, I feel like I would really benefit from counseling, but um, I have heard, yeah, it's not really like they give you advice. It's like
Mm,
they get you where you need to be
mm,
healthy, right? But
mm.
I'm like, man, that's hard to do, I'm sure. But and stressful at times,
Mm.
I would imagine. But
Yeah. But it's so glorious when you see the person like have their breakthrough, like
mm,
and it doesn't happen with every person because even therapy, you really get what you put into it.
okay.
Um,
This is
but
true. Yes, yes.
yeah, and so there is like a level of commitment and like a readiness for you to even like want to change, right?
Mm,
Um, but I talk about him all the time. I can't like say his real name. I will call him Mr. O. So I
okay.
used to work at the Atlanta VA. And so I was working in a hospital setting, and I was treating patients for PTSD and like comorbid diagnoses. So a lot of the times like what that would look like is substance use, like addiction,
Mm,
and like personality disorder. So
mhm.
we have a specific like clinic for borderline personality disorder, which is lots of strains on interpersonal relationships, and the roots of that are trauma. But I had a patient named Mr. O, and these were like military veterans. He wasn't, like he didn't go to combat, but still, he's like an army man.
Mhm.
He experienced he experienced rape in the military, and like all the things that really that that trauma did to him. It really took his life away.
Mm.
He was stuck the 19 years ago that this event had happened. He was still stuck there, and he had gotten married and had now has adult children, but he was like still stuck at his 20 something year old self.
Yeah.
And after we went through the process, like he emoted, like he released the and all the things that he had been shoving down and trying to cope with alcohol or drugs or money, and like and he actually dealt with what was inside. And I mean,
Mm.
it was a lot. Like, he emoted very severely, like he was throwing things and crying and screaming. But
Oh,
I think that's what you need to do when you experience something like that, and he was
yeah.
avoiding it for so long. But to see him to get to the other side, and after our time together, him being like, I think I'm happy for the first time in like 19
Wow. Oh
years.
my
And
gosh.
like he was unable to go to places with a lot of people, which is a common symptom of PTSD because they're on such hypervigilance. And like I remember when we were wrapping up and like terminating, he was like, I think I'm gonna take my wife dancing. Like she's always wanted to go. And I was like,
Ah.
yeah. So
Oh
like
my
the
goodness.
healing that came from him and what that means for his marriage, and probably his relationship with his children, like the fact that I got to even be like a minute part of that is
Mm.
it's like, yes, the job, it's so hard, but it's like to be a
Yes.
part of that is like everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's so great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I would, you're talking about the joys of teaching for you, like
Mm,
the
mhm,
investment that's made, but this too, I feel like, man, the the fruit that is bared through the hardship and just
mm,
pressing through those times
mhm,
must be so rewarding, to be
mm,
able to be experience that and be a part of that. And
mm.
yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Man, but getting there, I'm sure, is like so much work.
Oh yeah. A lot of pulling and pushing.
Yeah. Okay, like the school aspect of being a counselor, like going through the studies, like I've heard so like what is a normal like not the PhD program, but like what is a normal process of like, hey, like I want to be a counselor,
Mm,
what do I need to do?
yeah. So it also depends on what type of counselor. So there are
Okay.
school counselors and then
Oh,
FFPs. Like
okay,
it
okay.
really depends on which route you go. So I'm probably most familiar with our like my school has a master's program in clinical mental health counseling.
Okay.
So I've mentored like a couple of students that are in that program,
Uh-huh.
and it seems like that's more of the generalist route as opposed to like addiction or school or
Okay,
what
okay.
have you, or marriage and family.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And it seems like they do that, they get like they do a basic theory class, they do a basic like counseling class, they do no, they don't do career. They do like they usually do like an introductory level like statistics class just to be able to read
Mm.
research and then
Mhm.
apply it to your practice. Like that's
Mhm.
usually helpful to kind of understand the mechanisms of what's behind research.
Mhm.
They take a diagnosis class, and then like probably some other courses. And then they do like internships like throughout their master's program too, and then they take like a licensing exam, so
Okay, at the
whether it's
end.
for LPC or MFT. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So we are kind of rounding out our hour together.
Yes.
And I always ask people kind of similar questions towards the end. You've kind of shared, I don't know, I feel like you've touched on what you like best and what you like not so much about
Mhm.
your job.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I mean, can you share one more time, like, if you could, out of everything, what do you like most currently right now in this season? Oh, when do you
Yeah.
finish, by the way? Your
I graduate, so I do like clinical residency starting in August, and
Uh-huh.
then I will graduate by next May after
Holy
I defend my
cow!
dissertation.
That's
Yeah, so about
amazing.
a year left.
Yeah. Do you know where you're gonna do your dissertation on? Like, do you
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
have
okay.
about 2/3 of it written.
Oh, wow! Okay, sorry, I don't know the order,
No,
but
it's okay. Yeah.
Oh, what is it on?
It's on intergenerational trauma for Korean and Korean American families.
Is there, like, a presentation? Because I feel like I need to hear it.
Yes, there is my defense. I did a prospectus
Wow.
defense and I presented on like what I have found like so far, but I have kind of a final one when
Uh,
I finally defend in
okay,
May.
and then, like, the research that goes into it, like, do you research people?
Mhm.
Or oh.
So my chapter one, I did a what is it, critical like review. So it's really what do we know from psychological literature about this topic.
Okay.
And then my chapter two is like an intervention study. So I'm doing a randomized control trial for whether or not a psychoeducation intervention is efficacious in like intervening with intergenerational trauma for second gen Korean Americans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How relevant. Man, that is so good.
Mm.
Um, I was gonna ask, so what have you been finding? But maybe I should just wait till you publish your dissertation.
Yes.
um, okay, but what I was saying before I asked you that question was, yeah, what do you like the most out of your job?
Oh, I mean, my reason of what I like and what I don't like is probably the same. Like I am stretched so much, like um I consider myself both a scientist and a practitioner. And so, like,
Mm,
the cognitive and emotional muscles that I have to really stretch on the daily to be a like good therapist, be a good psychologist, and like be a good instructor and and then like conduct my own research and really like knowing how to do that, what I'm doing, and make it relevant for the community that I care about.
mm,
I feel like usually for folks, they go to a job, they know what their job description is, they have, like an outline of that. And maybe there's like some, pivots and caveats from it, but like my day just looks so different. And I do wear so many hats that require so many different skill sets
yeah.
and capacity, right? Like mentally, like sometimes it's just mental or sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's both, and it really stretches me.
Mm.
And I love that. I think I would be very bored if I did a 9 to 5.
Oh man.
But I also sometimes like really wish I did a 9 to 5 because like it is very tiring to be stretched that much for like 5 years, you know?
Right, right.
Um, so my reason might like kind of just be related to the stretching part.
That's an unusual answer, Hannah.
I Yeah.
And I say that because I'm like, who likes being stretched like to the point of, but man, I love that. I love that you love to be challenged. And
Mm,
I hope people listening, I don't know, like would take that as a kind of an encouragement in the sense of like, hey, what is this like
mm,
to want to be stretched and want to
mm,
be, a little bit, have growth in your life. I
mm,
think it's so easy, especially. Yeah, it is. It's so easy to just kind of float and be comfortable.
mm,
But that's really amazing.
mm.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really great. What about something you hate the most or like the least? I was gonna say hate, but
Yeah.
it's a strong word.
Yeah. I think it does get lonely.
Oh.
I feel so blessed for this
Mm-hmm.
level of training and the level of stretching. I really do feel blessed, and I feel like I've known what I wanted to do for so long. And I know that a lot of folks like in my age group don't feel that way, but
Mm.
this is how I know it's a God thing because I just like I know like this is a good, not only a good fit for me as a person, but I feel conviction, you know? But
Mm.
also I think from that comes like I really do feel like I'm just walking this road alone sometimes. And I actually had a funny conversation today with somebody that was like, and I get this question asked pretty often, but you know, they're like, "Oh, isn't it like hard to psychoanalyze yourself and like other people around you all the time?" And usually I take that question and I think it's like funny and I just brush it off. But today I thought about it a little bit more, but you know, when your entire like career is revolved around like understanding your emotions, challenging your you know, thoughts, correcting your behavior and moving towards, you know, like not just like emotional and mental health, but relational health, like physical health, because it's, you know, always so tied. um a lot of people, even in the closest relationships to me, this is not their field, you know? So it's hard
Mm.
to find people that I feel like I can relate with on this
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And so my friendship with other, you know, folks that are doing their PhD in something similar is that much more special to me because there's another level of like conceptualizing why I'm like this in my relationship or why my parents are like this, you know, and it's difficult to, I guess, like think and articulate yourself on that level when that's just not everybody's jar of pickle, you know?
Right. Right.
So I think it gets lonely and like I feel often misunderstood, you know? So like people
Mm.
give me a lot of like credit, like, oh, you're a professional in this, you're a psychologist, you know, and then like they remove the part where I'm like also human. And so
Mm.
like I feel like, well, like you, oh, you know, like I feel like being friends or whatever, like being in relationship with you, like I receive so much because of what you do for a job. But I think like on the flip side of that, it's hard for other people to kind of get scope of like who I am as a human without my
Interesting.
job, you know? So that part is hard, yeah. And it's something I have to really like contend for myself with. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't. No, I can imagine. But I've never thought of that. I mean, I don't know you that well, but I would imagine that is super challenging. Do you do that? Do you find yourself doing that? Like, I feel like maybe not now because you're so seasoned in your field, but in the beginning, did you like psychoanalyze people?
I mean, I still I know that. What was it this time? Honestly, I still probably do that. I can't help
Mm.
it.
Of
It's like if
course,
you,
of
yeah,
course.
it's like a dentist if like they saw
Right.
someone's like tooth being rotten or something, you
Right.
know, it's like I can't not see it, you
No, I
know?
mean, and it's kind of like, well, it's not the same, but maybe a little bit. I studied media, and
Uh-huh.
for like years, even now, like I'm so far from the field itself, but I do watch movies, and I'll turn to David, my husband, and be like, "Why do you think they did it that way?" You know, like
Really?
that makes no sense. Like, like
That's
in
funny.
so maybe and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Like
Yeah,
they did
yeah,
it this way because that's just the movie. And I'm like, "No,
yeah,
no." Like,
yeah.
but I would imagine it's something similar, but so do you find yourself doing that often?
Yeah, I think it's honestly the first thing that happens when I meet somebody, but, like,
Oh.
I now I've developed skills for, like, you know, you don't ever wanna, like, meet somebody and be like, "This is probably what's going on with you." So I turn that part off of, you know, and it's like, I turn that part off of me. I'm just kinda like, I don't
Yeah.
want to engage you, like,
Yeah.
you know, of what actually feels more natural to me, so I try to turn that part off, and, yeah, so it's actually harder not to psychoanalyze, do you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. It just means what you said earlier. This is what you were meant to do. Truly. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
like kind of nervous and scared right now, but I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm
Okay.
just joking. I'm just
Yeah,
messing with you. Okay, well,
psychoanalyzing you right now, Blair.
um, so for people listening, um, maybe they're thinking, hey, what Hannah's talking about, like, I feel like this is something that I could really like.
Mm,
Or, um, yeah, I don't know, what kind of advice would you have for that person, or just like any life advice at all?
Mm, mm, that's good. I think for folks that want to go into, like, want to specifically get their PhD in counseling psychology, um, I would say, like, it's worth it. There is a lot of days and nights it's not going to feel like it is,
Mm.
but I think at the end of it, you leave with so much. Like, I really believe that I could work for industry or academia or private practice. Um, like I am now. I wasn't before, but I'm, a skilled statistician, like data analyst, and a researcher,
Mm.
and like I'm a strong, obviously, like writer. I'm good interpersonally, and like, and even with the like social emotional aspect, like I'm a good teacher. Like I'm hopeful that this will be helpful in me being a good like parent one day. I think like there are
Oh,
just so many
absolutely it
strengths to
will.
what I
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there are unique ways that I could be useful and helpful to the church, which is a community I care about. So like there are just so many ways that you can be expended and really enjoy
Mm.
it if this is for you.
Mm.
So I think it's worth it.
Mm.
But I think if you want to go into it, you should definitely recognize that there will be moments where you don't feel like you're good enough. Lots of imposter syndrome, but I think that's a big area where my faith is a part of that. Like it has been so grounding for me, because every time I'm like, God, I don't want to do this, like, or I can't, I really can't. Like, I'm not smart enough.
Mm.
Like, I'm not critical of a thinker enough. I'm not empathetic enough. Like, I always had reasons of why I felt like I wasn't enough. And I think it grounded me back to like, it's not because you're enough, but it's because I'm making you enough. He
Mm.
calls, not the qualified, but he qualifies the called.
Yeah.
And I think like this process has been so good for not just my relationship with God, but for my relationship with other people and my relationship with myself. And so
Mm.
there's just so much to glean from it that I think obviously a typical job might not have. And I'm thankful like for the training I have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Man, Hannah, I'm so thankful for you and thankful for your journey. Thank you so much for sharing it with me tonight. Um, Not to put you on the spot, but if there's somebody that's like, hey, I'd love to hear more or chat with Hannah, would you be okay with me putting you in contact with them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, if you have anything to say about this episode or you'd like to talk with Hannah, please feel free to reach out. You can DM me on social media or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks so much, guys. Until next time. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Bye.